Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and we are on episode number 33. Excited to have you here today. We have Jennifer Swanson with us. Jennifer is the Director of Sports Performance for the Chicago Bulls. She was recently appointed to this position, and I thought it'd be very cool to have her on the show to talk a little bit about this kind of high-performance manager type of route that a lot of programs are going with. Not a lot, but it's starting to be trending here in the United States. It's long been the trend in the Olympic sport countries, but it's starting to make its way here in a lot of our professional sports and trickling on down into colleges. Jennifer obviously has a background in physical therapy. She did her residency at Pittsburgh, worked with the Steelers there while she was there. Went from there. It was the performance physical therapy manager at Athletes Performance in California, and then recently got this position. And I thought it'd be cool for a lot of reasons to talk about a little bit about how she's managing massage therapy, strength conditioning, chiropractic, nutrition, all the different areas that go into performance, but also just her role within the team and how she's been able to break in a male-dominated type of profession and make an impact, and make a huge impact. And so I thought it would be good just to get her insight in that as well. We talked a little bit about leaving the performance world for the team sport world and where she thought she could make the biggest impact there in Chicago. So really cool conversation. She's obviously a neat person, and I think we're going to get a lot out of this as we go. As always, I want to make sure we recognize Play Sports Performance Flooring for being the sole sponsor of the show. Many of you guys know Rich Gray. He used to be with Hammer Strength. Rich is now with Play Performance Sports Flooring, and stand-up guy, a guy that's a friend of mine, is going to do a phenomenal job there and make some make a huge impact there. So if you have not already reached out to Rich to congratulate him, please do so. But also, for the people that do know him, or if you are in the process of facility design or facility concept, Rich has helped me with 2 different facilities, and he is the go-to person for me when I'm looking at getting a concept or throwing around ideas. So not just from a flooring standpoint, but anything, reach out to Rich because I know he'll be able to help you. But I'm excited for him. I think it's a great, excuse me, I think it's a great opportunity for him. I think it's a great match for Play, and I'm excited to see where they go. As I mentioned in the last episode, we are on iTunes now. If you have not gone over to iTunes there with Apple, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Just search Iron Game Chalk Talk in the iTunes marketplace there, and then while you're there, hit the subscribe button. Download the episodes that maybe you have not heard, and then if you would, please leave a rating and a review. We've had several people do that, and it's a lot of positive feedback, so I appreciate that, especially the people that have done that, and for those that haven't, if you would, my mission with this show is to try to help as many coaches as possible, and obviously things like this are not things that come natural to me, but it's also part of the process. And so to rank higher in iTunes and all those types of things, it's subscribes, it's downloads, and it's ratings and reviews. So if you do appreciate the job that we're doing here, if you would go there and leave a rating and a review, I'd truly appreciate that. So enough of me rambling about that. Please sit back and enjoy this episode. I know you're going to get a lot out of Jennifer, so we'll see you on the flip side. All right, guys, very excited about our guest today. Jennifer Swanson is the Director of Sports Performance for the Chicago Bulls, and she just recently came to that position from Athletes Performance. So we're really excited to have her on the show. Thanks so much for being here, Jen.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Jen, you don't look like the typical bald head, goatee, meathead strength coach. So, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you're currently at.
Well, I'm actually not a strength coach, so that's probably part of it. I'm a physical therapist by trade. I did my undergraduate school in California at UC Davis, and I actually wanted to be an athletic trainer. My ultimate goal was to be a sports medicine doctor, to be a team physician.
Sure.
But I was an athlete in college, and so when I was practicing, that's when the athletic trainers were working, so it just kind of didn't really mesh for me to be an athletic trainer at the same time. So I kind of made it my mission to do everything I could to make up for the fact that I wasn't an athletic trainer. That was traditionally the path if you wanted to get into medicine on the non-strength conditioning side, that you needed to have a dual credential.
Right.
And then when I was in undergrad, I was in the middle of taking my OChem courses, and I just didn't really click with some of those things, especially I didn't want to have to take them again in med school. And it was around that time I actually got injured and spent a lot of time in the training room. I worked for an orthopedic surgeon one summer, and I just really missed having the connection of the daily interactions. I mean, for some people, they'd see once every 6 weeks, once every 6 months, one time. And I realized surgery really wasn't where, I was really interested in. And so then the following year, I worked at a physical therapy clinic as an aide and just fell in love with it. And so from then on, I actually, once I finished school, I only applied to one school for PT school. It was really my grand plan to turn professional as a track athlete. And so when I applied to the one school, I had all the prereqs, so I figured it'd be a great way to get all of my letters of recommendation done, write my essay, train for a year, compete, see what I could do, and then the following year I'd have a good base to apply everywhere in California. And so they called and said, "You have an interview." "Oh, this would be great practice, no problem." And then they came to me and said, "You're accepted." So it ended up being Duke University, and it's not exactly a school that I felt like I could turn down.
Sure.
So went out to the East Coast, first time away from home. Ended up, I didn't compete for my first 6 months there, and then realized I was just not on a great schedule. Go to class all day, take a nap, then I'd go eat dinner, work out, and then I'd finally study. It was just, I was used to being an athlete, and that just wasn't working for me. So I ended up talking to the track coaches there, became a volunteer assistant coach, and then competed for another 2 years while I was going to PT school. And then from there, I kind of got to the point again, do I continue with track or do I try to go into my career? I chose the career at that point.
Sure.
So immediately from there, I wanted to do a sports residency because I knew I wanted to specialize. Sports had always been, since I was 10 years old, I wanted to be involved with sports medicine. And so I went to the University of Pittsburgh and Center for Rehab Services and did a sports residency there for 2 years, where I worked with the Pittsburgh Steelers as a physical therapy intern for a year, and then spent about 4 years there before moving to California to work at Athletes Performance, which I was there for almost 6 years.
As a physical therapist there?
Yeah. So I worked at our LA facility.
So now with Chicago, is it kind of a high performance type of model where you're overseeing several facets of sports performance, or is most of your day spent as a physical therapist, a strength coach, a performance coach? How do you define your days right now?
So it's a brand new role. So there's nobody that's ever had this job here. So I get to kind of create it as I go, which is an incredible opportunity. So the ultimate job is to oversee the athletic training, strength conditioning, and any auxiliary services, whether it be massage therapy, nutrition, sleep, chiropractic care, and really try to integrate all of the departments together as one so that everybody's on the same page trying to achieve the same goals. So that's a big part of it, but I also get to work as a physical therapist as well. So it's a mixture of all of the above every day. So pre-game, pre-practice, I'm treating. At the same time, I'm interacting with the training staff, strength conditioning staff, you name it.
Sure. Now, when you decided to leave Athletes Performance for the team sports, what was the decision process? Why did you feel like you wanted to get back into kind of maybe a team sport as opposed to working with multiple sports, multiple athletes?
Sure. Working with the team's always been my ultimate goal from the very beginning. The the hard part when I was at Athletes Performance, I got to see a lot of the athletes year after year, which was great, but they would always leave. And so you never really got to be a part of, what their season was all about. You hear it kind of from the fringes. So I really wanted to be there, the good, the bad, be in the trenches, and just be a part of something special.
I know, a former intern of mine is the head strength coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it's a fight. It's a daily fight, just to not so much fighting with the athletes, but from a schedule standpoint, just to get the performance training in through the week. It's almost it's to get two full workouts. You're working out almost 7 days a week in little pieces. Talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced there in Chicago and how you guys go about implementing a strength and conditioning program.
Sure. I think the key is balance. So it's a crazy schedule. You could have 3 or 4 games a week. You could get in at 3 a.m. the night before and have a back-to-back the next night. I think having a scheduled flexibility, if you will, in terms of when you do things. So it's working with the athletic training staff and the strength staff to try to be creative in terms of timing. Usually they're lifting twice a week, and then you're building in correctives with it. So maybe some of the strength staff will be doing some of the correctives. Maybe some of the athletic training staff and myself will be doing some of the activation exercises, or vice versa. Massage therapists are key. Maybe they're focusing on some of the soft tissue kinds of things. So collectively, as a whole, you're able to get that balance.
Right.
But it is challenging, especially when they're practicing 2 hours a day on top of that.
Exactly.
It's not easy, for sure.
It's almost an impossible task.
I have much better respect.
Absolutely. So now talk a little bit about that. Now you're coordinating that effort with all those departments. Talk a little bit about how how you have set up a great communication structure with the strength staff, the athletic training staff, physical therapists, massage therapists. Are you guys meeting once a week? Are you is it kind of a daily type of schedule? Talk about that.
I think there's a lot of informal communication daily. Absolutely. For sure. We try at the very least to get together as a group at least once a week, just to talk through every athlete and problems and kind of what's being covered, what are we addressing, what are we missing, what do we need to include. But there's a ton of informal communication as well. Right next to me in the next office over is the strength staff. So I talk to them throughout the day. Same thing, I'm in the training with the athletic trainers. So constant.
What about now with as much technology that's out there and things along those lines, GPS, heart rate, those types of things, are you guys using that technology, and then how do you, again, coordinate that effort?
Yep, so that was a big part of my role, is bringing some of those things in. Utilizing the strength staff is a huge component to be able to help facilitate some of that, looking at training load, volume, those types of things, heart rate, and then being able to analyze that data. I think the important part is you can gather as much data as you want, but if you don't know how to use it, or you don't use it at all, it doesn't really help you.
Sure. Yeah. So what are some of those key factors, or what are some of those markers that you're looking for when using GPS or heart rate?
There's a lot that you're looking at with it, but you're looking at training load, you're looking at the RPE, overall training volume throughout the course of the week, the month. With all of the video camera analysis they're doing now, we're incorporating that as well. There's a lot of data out there. I think every team uses it a little bit differently. Well,
I think everybody, I think it's gotten to the point where everybody's doing some sort of monitoring per se. But I think the key ingredient to that is the discussion with your athletes, the reporting feature back to your athletes or back to your coaches. And so it really comes down to identifying what are those key,
key variables
that you want to be able to communicate to them. That's going to give you the most bang for your buck. So for example, with us, the Bengals, we make sure we look at, caloric expenditures so that we're turning around and we're giving back anything that we're taking from them in terms of calories and nutrition and food.
Sure.
We're looking at, training load, and being able to identify or a value to an aspect of practice or a practice as a whole. and giving them some feedback there and then return to play. When we got return to play athletes, trying to keep them in a level of conditioning, base level of conditioning, so that they're able to go right back in when they do get back to the point where they're up, as close to 100% as you can be in a professional season.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And then I think the other thing that we want to target is recovery.
Right.
It's such a key thing for us. Hydration, sleep. So those are some of the other ones we're really trying to keep a close eye on.
Now, in that respect, then, with a sport where you're constantly traveling, you're constantly sleeping in different beds, what are some of the ways that you're educating your athletes on? I mean, I know we all as strength coaches will sit there and it's important to get 8 hours of sleep, but getting them to understand that and to implement strategies to address that's the key factor.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of different things you can do, common sense things that everybody thinks about, but I think with the computer screens, the TV, the phones, having that blue light that is stimulating the brain to stay awake, I think educating the athletes on that, trying to take away there's a lot of athletes for us that after a game they have a really hard time sleeping, so trying to help them with strategies that it's okay if you can't sleep, but let's try to figure out ways we can try to set up a routine to try to help facilitate that. So whether it's you take a shower, you may read for a little bit, lights out. So it's having that same routine every time. Napping, having a set time, set amount that you want to be able to sleep rather than just going home and sleeping for 4 hours after practice. Right. Getting them in good habits, I think is the key.
Sure. Now, when you got to Chicago, in part, like you said, this is a new position, and it was created for a reason. But what were some of the things that from your eye or from coming from the private sector, that you said I can make an immediate impact here, and this is maybe something that is missing in other organized team sports?
Sure. I think having my experience at Athletes Performance, the idea was it was one-stop shop where everything that an athlete would need was under one roof. Right. So whether it was physical therapy, performance training, nutrition, sleep, and then really just getting everybody on the same page, talking the same language. So your credentials go out the door as soon as you walk in the room. It's everybody plays a role, and let's try to all accomplish those goals together as opposed to working separately. So that was one of my big goals. And then they didn't have a physical therapist here before, so it's just a different skill set. And I have a great staff here, very skilled athletic training staff and strength staff. So it's just a great environment where everybody tries to really be collaborative.
I would imagine. This is a relatively new position, even across the league, I'm sure, and a lot of professional sports. But to some degree, coaching, strength coaching, physical therapy is kind of a male-dominated kind of profession. As a young female physical therapist, strength coach, athletic trainer, trying to get to break into professional sports, what are some of the recommendations you have for young female strength coaches or physical therapists or athletic trainers to accomplish that?
I think education's a huge role. I didn't let that stop me. So fortunately for me, it's been pretty much of a non-issue since I've been here, which is great. And I've been very fortunate. But my goal, with everything was I don't want to give anybody any excuse. So, I wasn't an athletic trainer, but I got my doctorate in physical therapy. I did a sports residency. I became board certified in sports and orthopedics. I took my CSCS exam. I just really tried to make myself well-rounded, and then just develop relationships with people. Based on that, I think the more relatable you are, and you get some credibility there as well.
Well, I think another key, that you briefly mentioned earlier, but I think when you're an athlete yourself, when you've been a competitive athlete, especially at a high level like you were, I think athletes respect that, and it makes things a little bit easier because you've been there, you've been injured and you've had to go through rehab and return to play and those types of things. You've had to go, you've taken a long road trip and then turn around and had to come back in and train the next day. And I think when you experience those things as an athlete, it's a little bit easier for you to turn around and understand where their head's at a little bit and be able to guide them through that process. I think experience goes a long way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, the more you can relate to them and they can relate back and you can share experiences with other athletes that you've worked with in similar situations. I mean, those things go a long way.
From a strength and conditioning standpoint, what's outside of just the common, the obvious of time, what are the biggest challenges that your strength staff faces at that level, in basketball specifically?
Sure. I think time is a huge factor. You have a short amount of time before practice, post-practice fatigue. So fatigue is an issue. If you've got a game the next day, you don't want to do a heavy leg day. A lot of your time may be spent during recovery. But you don't want to lose, it's a long season, so you can't just do recovery for the whole season. So it's trying to find a balance. If you're lifting twice a week, how can you get those individual needs met? So whether it's strength training, movement training, correctives, how do you fit everything in without overloading them?
Absolutely. That's recovery, and just your annual planning is where that kind of comes in. Is you might not be able to get all of your your hypertrophy work or your true strength and power work during the season. It's really kind of let's activate and keep as strong as we possibly can. And such a long season. I know that's a big challenge, and I know with talking to Derek and some of the other NBA strength coaches I know. I mean, they got their bag of tricks. They got their TRX, they got their bands, they've got their foam roll, they got their they got a bunch of different things that they plop out on the court pre-game, pre-practice sometimes, and get as much done as you possibly can, and using manual resistance and body weight exercises and things along those lines to continue to train and activate those muscles is important.
Sure. Well, and then I think, even seeing like post-game lifts, it's a totally different animal than you see in some sports, and it's a common thing here, hockey. But it was something that, I came from a 4-day lifting plan where I was off-season training. It's very different. So, trying to find a balance is key. Absolutely.
Well, Jed, we always end these episodes with, kind of a book recommendation and website recommendation, those types of things. Give us a book that you would recommend to, this is mostly strength coaches listening to this, to strength coaches that they should definitely be in their library.
I'm a big fan of Shirley Sarman movement impairments. That was the first time I'd been exposed to anything like that. I didn't learn that in school, so I thought it's great and can be applied to a lot of things.
Absolutely. You said that Shirley. What was the last name?
Shirley Sarman.
Sarman. Yeah. What about when you're on a long bus trip or you're waiting up for the plane to take off and you're surfing the web? Where are you going?
I think there's a lot of strength out there. Mike Boyle, Mike Reinold. There's a lot of great ones out there for sure. Mm-hmm. Your site as well.
Appreciate that. What about like we talked a little bit about technology earlier? Is there an app or something that you're using with your athletes to either A, communicate with them, or B, try to disseminate information to them?
I think like Dartfish, Coach's Eye, anything that you can show them what they're doing is key, so they can make changes real time, especially if you don't have a mirror or something available to you, or even being able to draw on that and to show them exactly what you mean. I think those are very valuable.
Well, in your experience is probably similar to mine in a lot of regards. That professional athletes are very high level athletes. They're visual creatures now. Their body's been able. They pick up things very quickly if they can see it first, and then they're able to go do it. And it's phenomenal. But it's definitely something that has been noticeable for me throughout my career.
Well, for sure. And as you know as well, athletes are your biggest cheaters. So they don't feel that they're doing it wrong. So to put them in that position where they feel uncomfortable, but to be able to show them this is why, I think is very valuable.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Jen, I appreciate you coming on the show. This has been great. And, I'm going to make sure to link up like your Twitter and things along those lines. But truly appreciate you. I know it's such a tough thing to fit any type of any type of interview or anything like that outside of your normal work day. So I really truly appreciate you staying on and doing this for us.
Sure, no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. Hey guys, a couple quick things before you let you go. As always, all the things that we mentioned in this episode are at ronmckeefery.com, and this episode will be /Jennifer Swanson. So ronmckeefery.com /Jennifer Swanson. All the information is there. And while you're there, please join me in the comment section and let Jennifer know how much we appreciate her time and her efforts by coming on the show and sharing with us today. If you're trying to find ways to stay up with the latest episodes, I have lots of ways to do that. First, you can, while you're at ronmckeefery.com, sign up for the mailing list. You get a free ebook when you do with several quotes, completely free. I email you once a week on Thursdays to let you know what the latest Tribe TV video was, as well as the latest Iron Game Chalk Talk episode. If you are a YouTube person, you can subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and you'll get updates there. And then lastly, and most recently, we are now on iTunes, and want to be able to bring that to you that way as well. So you can go to iTunes store, search for Iron Game Chalk Talk, and subscribe to the channel, download any of the episodes that you've missed, and if you would, leave a rating and review while you're there. That helps me with this whole process and helps me on YouTube as well. So if you can do that, I'd really appreciate it. Lastly, strength-ondemand.com. This is a project by Rob Taylor and myself. Basically, we created an online archive of strength and conditioning clinic presentations. Thought that there's tons of great information out there, tons of great presentations given each year, and we're just not able to get to all these things, And so, without sacrificing your time, your travel, or money, we wanted to be able to bring you a way to learn from those great strength coaches out there. So, there's 52 presentations for 2013 that are up currently. Some of the biggest names in the field. And, it's just a great resource. So check that out, strength-ondemand.com. And I know you'll enjoy it, especially if you enjoy these episodes. Make sure you check back next week for another great episode, and enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.